So we get to Uttara Phalguni then. And so it's that last 3-something degrees of Leo and ruled by suns. You get that double sun. You get that a really powerful, independent, sovereign, maybe the most sovereign, the most independent of all the nakshatras is here at Uttara Phalguni. Nobody's going to tell these people what to do. They sort of tell other people what to do. Now, the other thing with, I think it's all the sun nakshatras are power sources, right? That's what the sun is. It's a source of power, and everybody around gets their power from the sun nakshatras, from Uttara Phalguni. So that's also like the patron. He's sitting at the table. People are looking. They want to get a little bit of money to do their projects. They want some advice. They want some favor. But a lot of the power is coming out of the king, out of Uttara Phalguni. They're spreading it. They're kind of, anyways, funding things and building prosperity for everyone. Now, the god of this is Aryaman, which is also an Aditi. There's the 12 Aditis. So Aryaman is, the Aditis are the sun gods, the 12 sun gods. So Aryaman is one of these sun gods. Now, he's an old god. He's one of the old Vedic gods. And Aryaman of Uttara Phalguni, Mitra of Anuradha, and Varuna of Satabhishak. These three were often sort of working together. You'll see here Indra come in, kind of for part of the gang. Soma was another god that was kind of part of this early Vedic gang. But really, you heard Varuna, Mitra, and Aryaman. And so Aryaman was all about the agreement, kind of making an agreement. Mitra was sort of the friend who helps us sort of keep our vow or keep our agreements. And Varuna was the sort of the spy, the eye in the sky that watches over to make sure that we keep our vow. So it's like, it was that idea of, you make a vow, you can't just go sneak into your bedroom and break the vow and ha ha ha, nobody sees and I'm good, because Varuna would always see. And it's usually that vow that you would make here in Uttara Phalguni with Aryaman. And so this was, well, you look back into the Greek times, and this whole system of patronage was almost built into the system. And we have it a little bit nowadays still, like a lot of wealthy people, they give a lot of money to the arts. They're kind of patrons of the arts. In some ways, that's kind of how I live. People who are kind of patrons to my knowledge, patrons to my wisdom, and they sort of help support me in different ways, especially on the trip when I'm traveling, right? This is like, I'm all staying really with patrons, people who just support my work, and they're not really that involved in getting involved with my work. They don't really, a lot of them don't want anything from it. Okay, read the chart and blah, 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 but it's just like, just keep doing your work. And so that's kind of the role of the patron. Now, a couple things here. The later reddish one, this one bothered me because Uttara Phalguni is associated with the color blue. The blue of the Rudraksh, the blue of the Smurfs, the blue of the blue color of the gods. But then here in the meaning, it's got this later reddish one, which doesn't fully, it's like, why blue and red? Now, I didn't really get a chance to look at it, but this is still, the first part especially is still in Leo. And I think this might be the nakshatra. You know, you get those sort of big boss man figures, like, I don't know, this might be before your time, like Boss Hogg, you know, the big boss man, they got the big red face. They're always kind of angry and stressed, and their face is always really red. I think that probably comes in here with some of these Ironman positions, and some of these people are kind of like that. So that's that lighter reddish one. I think this also establishes a connection. So the Uttara Phalguni then would be the earlier reddish one. But if we think back to Rohini, it was also the reddish one, the reddish hue, the pink a little bit more than red, but it also connects. If you look at Aryaman and Rohini, there's actually a lot of similarities involved with these two, and I suspect they would get a high matching score, and these kind of people would be fairly compatible. So we see here too now, this is the two back legs of the day bed. Uttara Phalguni was the two front legs of the day bed. Now, I think I talked about it a little bit there, but the day bed, this is a lot where I would hang out in the day when I was at the ashram. I'd hang out on this sort of day bed. That's actually where I was sleeping at night too, because I was just sleeping outside. But the day bed is sort of out and where the public has access to you. And so I sit on my day bed, and Babaji, maybe Guruji, he sits on his day bed, and the students and the patrons, they come in and they give some flowers and they give some ganja, and really in some sense they're just coming for sort of darshan, but they're coming to maybe get some advice and ask about things, and they're coming to the patron, the person who kind of has some wisdom and some knowledge, and these sun nakshatras are really all about the truth. Right? So they want someone, Uttara Phalguni is that person who's going to tell you the truth. They're going to help lift you up like the sun tries to lift you up. And so that's really the key with, I think even some of the Leo nakshatras, is we think of the Leo and the sun energy as being this really egotistical energy. And maybe that's the dark side of the ego. But really the higher side is someone who's very highly positioned, but they use that position to lift others up with them, really. And so that's the key to this. So let's go back to this day bed, because there's a difference between Purva and Uttara Phalguni. This one's very much about rest in a lot of ways, and it's the back legs of the day bed. So this is like, well, this is kind of where the boss might be sitting when he gets up, right? If he sleeps on the day bed, his head goes down at the head of the bed, and when he sits up down at the feet. But the Purva Phalguni, it's ruled by the Venus, so it's much more concerned with arts, entertainment, enjoyment, pleasures. Bhaga, the delight, was Purva Phalguni. Now we get Aryaman, the patron. This is almost kind of, in a way, if we think of Leo as that middle part of the day, so you've come and you've enjoyed, you've had some like little party with Purva Phalguni, and then Uttara Phalguni, that's where you're sitting afterwards. You're maybe having a coffee to talk and make the deals, in a sense. And so it's a little bit more serious than Purva Phalguni on one hand. On the other hand, it's very much concerned with they're both concerned with rest. Purva is that sort of rest you get through rest and enjoy. Uttara Phalguni is more like rest and wellness, like take rest, build up your energy again, in a sense. And so it's much more restful in that way. We get the Rudraksh tree. Oh, wow. I'll get down to that pretty quick. I did some great study on the Rudraksh tree. That just like blew my mind, all that stuff on the Rudraksh. This also, the animal here is the male bull. And so this is very much like Nandi, and Shiva's bull, Nandi, is very much here. And that's interesting. If we look at the party, anyways, we'll come to that after. But so we get the Rudraksha, we get sort of a Nandi sort of idea in here. So it's quite connected with Shiva, of course. I don't know if you go to every one of these videos, I've probably connected every nakshatra with Shiva. Oh, it's really connected with Shiva. This one's really special to Shiva, because Shiva's just everywhere, right? And so, but no, this is really, anyways, very special to Shiva. Om Namah Shivaya. So this is Kshatriya also. So it's that warrior caste, that leader caste. These people are usually capable of making quite difficult decisions, like we need to do in leader, the central figure of a team or a party, a political party. All of these sorts of things come in. Really, that central figure comes in. motivated by moksha. If we put this together like the kshatriya, really all the warrior wants to do, the warrior doesn't want to fight actually. The warrior wants peace. The warrior wants that relaxation that comes after the fight. And that's really the Uttara Phalguni, that moksha, that the fight is done. I can let go, I can relax, I'm released from my duties. Sense, right? The soldier gets leave or whatever. It's like, woo! And so that's really what the Kshatriya soldier here wants, and the king wants, is that sort of release. Very balanced perspective and balanced view. Again, it's that they're great leaders, really wonderful leaders, because they are balanced. Rajasic, you need that Rajasic tendency actually for, well, for change, for passion, is Rajasic. And so a lot of passion and fire we see also goes into a lot of what they're doing here. Very driven, like I said here, for success, very intellectual and intelligent and sharp-minded people as well. Palastia, knowledge, wisdom, cosmic order, something's really highlighted, dharma and ethical conduct. Truth seekers, I think, connects through the sun here, really seeking to live in harmony. Again, wants that sort of to be able to rest. There's a bunch of stories here. He lived in the small hut and he cursed the young girls. I find this hilarious because it's almost borderline criminally today. So these young girls kept coming up and playing in the forest where he was trying to meditate. And so he got annoyed by this. And he sort of said, the next young girl that comes up here in my forest and makes noise is going to end up pregnant. and so of course that happens, and so it's like, what, some young girl went up and got pregnant by the Babaji? Like, what's going on with Babaji up there? But he was a great sage, and the girl's father was happy and made the sage marry her, and it all turned out quite nicely. But again, I think there is this in all the Leo nakshatras, there's something childlike about them all, in a sense. Maga was that sort of childlike wonder. Purva Phalguni is more that childlike, what can you say, the childlike fun, I guess, the childlike enjoyment and pleasures. And Uttara Phalguni, I think, is that sort of like, that child is capable of making their own world, in a sense, in Uttara Phalguni. The child is the boss of the world, the center of attention everywhere they go. And so that's also a part of the children. And he got tested for his humility and respect, and a lot of these sorts of things come into here. We get the male bull. It was an interesting, I just read an interesting story. Did I write that here? No, I did not. I just heard an interesting story about Nandi that I never heard, Shiva's bull. And it's apparently at Shiva's wedding, when he went to marry Parvati, the wedding party was going on. And Nandi was so he was so happy to see his Babaji, Shiva, getting married. And he was just so overcome with joy that he went out on the dance floor and he started just dancing like a madman. Well, Shiva's a bull, man. And so he wasn't, nobody really appreciated this much. They're like, Nandi, look at Nandi, he's going crazy, breaking everything. So Shiva actually came over to him and he saw this and he said, okay, Shiva, he said, do the Tandava dance. Because the Tandava is sort of the dance that brings the cosmos into order and then dissolution again. And so then Nandi learned the Tandava dance, and he was still you could say destroying the whole, instead of destroying the room, he was just destroying whole universes. And so everybody then watched Nandi dance with awe. They were like, wow, Nandi, you're amazing. And so, anyways, just, I don't know if it has anything to do with anything, but just a lovely story. It's just picturing Nandi dancing, this big bull dancing like a wild man. I just love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture in my head. So we get like that. So we get this Rudraksh tree. I love Rudraksh. So that's what I wear. I don't know if you've seen that. That's why I got these little mini Rudrakshas on my neck. And so the Rudrakshas, this is Shiva's bead. If you go to India, All the Babajis, everybody's wearing Rudraksh. Rudraksh is maybe the most popular mala bead to use in India. And of course, you can use it as a meditation bead. They say for meditation beads, you want to have a knot in between each bead, which makes it a complete pain in the butt to make a mala bead yourself because you're just tying knots. But so yeah, you get that knot and you put 108 together. Small ones like this, if they're the bigger Rudraksh, which they usually are, then you've got like the mala is hanging down past my belly button because it's so big with all those beads. So a lot of times what they do is they do half 108, they do 54 beads. And then so you just count like that. So, but Rudraksh is interesting because this is the color, it relates with the color blue, actually. I didn't know this before. So the Rudraksh, when they're a fresh berry on the tree, it's a blue berry. Now, it's not actually blue. It has no blue pigment in the skin of this berry. There's no blue pigment in this berry at all. It's two geometrical patterns, and that has a lot to do with Uttara Phalguni. Those like mala or those yantra patterns, and people are doing these geometric designs and all that crazy stuff people are doing like that, all relates with Uttara Phalguni. So what the Rudrakshas is the skin has two layers with two different geometrical designs on it, and they're turned a little bit to each other so that when the light goes through it and comes out, it looks like it's blue, but there's not actually any blue pigment. So kind of strange, actually. And there's a lot of animals, like especially the like golden furred animals. A lot of that golden fur isn't really blue. I suspect something in the peacock feathers as well might not, or yeah, sorry, the golden furred animals are not actually golden. They don't have any golden pigment in them. It's just that same process happening. So it's just really interesting, actually. It's kind of like Shiva. He doesn't actually exist either, but we get this effect. And so we sort of understand that. Yeah, the colors of the animals are due solely to the presence of definite pigments in the skin or beneath the skin, or are partly caused by the optical effects due to the scattering, diffraction, and unequal refraction of the rays of light. Colors of the latter have often spoken of structural colors. They're caused by the structure of the colored surfaces. So yeah, it's not a pigment, it's a structured coloration. Fascinating, amazing, this world we live in. So yeah, that's kind of where it gets the color blue. Now, if we look at the color blue, I should mention a little bit about this because it's associated with Akash, ether element. And so that's why a lot of the gods are blue. Krishna's blue. A lot of times Shiva's shown as blue. They get this blueness because they're gods. They're represented by the ether element, space. And so they're very high like that. The month of Phalgun, I think I mentioned this in the Uttara Phalguni part, but it's sort of like, anyways, kind of bridges both of these Phalguni Nakshatras. This is one of my favorite months because you get Holi and you get Shivaratri. And Shivaratri is like end of February, beginning of March. And then Holi comes 2 weeks after that. And so those are a couple of my biggest, most favorite festivals of the whole year in India. And that's really festival season. So Uttara Phalguni then connects with festivals. We see it here connecting with Shiva. We see, interesting, Ramakrishna Jayanti. I think Ramakrishna does have placements in Phalguna. Oh, actually, I'm pretty sure I saw his name. So we get these sorts of things coming out. Holi is the color festival. And so, yeah, all of this. I think the color festival probably relates more with something like the Uttara Phalguni than Uttara. But anyways, there it is. And so all of this kind of thing. It's a fixed, is that true? Is this a fixed nakshatra? Yeah, so this is a fixed nakshatra. So this is a good nakshatra, actually. God, I write brutal stuff. I'm really, really sorry for that sometimes. Because I could say something nice. So fixed nakshatras, they're also really good days. Like if you want to start a spiritual practice that you're going to do every day until like whatever, the end of eternity, something like that. Or you want to start something new that you want to keep in your life, you started on a day when moon is in Uttara Phalguni. And so whatever you start at those times are more likely to stay with you in a fixed way. The trick of that is then don't start like bad habits on those days, because they'll also become fixed. Right. So we really want to focus on what we do good on those days. Really good. They say great day for marriage. I think Shiva and Parvati were married on this day. Yeah, I'm sure they were. Where is it? I got it here somewhere. Got a note somewhere. Maybe it was the Uttara Phalguni, I'm thinking. But anyway, so it's a really good day to get married when moon is transiting through here. Now here we get the lips, the sex organs, the left hand. This is the same as Uttara Phalguni in a lot of ways. The lips, the sex organs, I think it was the right hand. But all these sun nakshatras, there's vision sensitivity and there's heart sensitivity in them. Now I think this one also comes with a little bit of bone sensitivity. It highlights things like the immune system more because of that sun power. Did I write any of this? Why don't I write any of this? I did all the studies on it the other day. It's written somewhere. I know I wrote it somewhere. So we'll get a lot of these, like the immune system's related with the sun. So a lot of autoimmune diseases and stuff like that might be related. The spinal cord is very much the central systems of the body. Of course, all the vitality, the immune system, and the vision is really, all these things can sort of be related with Uttara Phalguni. Now, the left hand is interesting. Did I write that? I wrote a whole. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so the left hand is interesting, rolling that, because left hand is the receptive hand. Symbolizes more the receiving nature, more connected with artistic art and creativity. Really, there's a lot of where Uttara Phalguni, well, it can be originally creative, but it's more focused on doing beauty, and so it does a lot of reproduction. Whereas the Uttara Phalguni really wants original stuff. It's more really that original sort of creativity. But it's interesting. Left-handed people have a slightly higher rate of mental health problems, allergies, asthma, autoimmune disorders. All that stuff fits right in with Uttara Phalguni. Now, in philosophy, I don't know if you've come across this term, the left-handed path in Tantra. So in Tantra, you have left-hand tantrics and right-hand tantrics. The right-hand tantrics are the nice tantrics. And the left-hand path, they're doing all the non-conformist, forbidden, unconventional. And so that's really a lot of the Westerners, I think, that aren't really spiritual very much, but looking for Tantra, are really looking for this left-hand path to justify drinking, smoking ganja, doing drugs, partying, all the unconventional ways of transcending our limitations. Now, this is really, I think, where this practice comes in most important, is for the people that have lived a very sort of bound life. They've just kind of, anyways, they just haven't gotten out much. They're a little bit stiff, and they're really, by convention, they're really stuck in that. They're really stuck in their previous learning of what's normal and good. And really, these are the people that need sort of this harsh treatment of the left-hand path. You get them out of their limitations, break their conditionings, challenge their conditioning, break the social norms. You know, these people, they've been told all these things are like really bad. Oh my God, that's so bad. I would never do that. And eventually, like, not everyone, but a lot of people are suffering because there's just too many things like, oh my God, I would never do that. That's just so like, oh God, yeah. And they have to do those things. They have to break those chains. They have to break those bonds. They have to embrace their inner devil. That's really what the left-hand path is. They have to break some of those rules in order to realize maybe like, oh, actually, that's not so bad. Oh, and maybe it is, but it's like, anyways, we need to get out of our little boxes sometimes. And so that's really what the left-hand path is all about, trying to expand our consciousness and all of that sort of stuff. So here we get Aryaman. I mentioned a lot of this already. He's invoked with Bhaga and Mitra. I can mention a whole bunch of names he's invoked with. Leadership, honor, nobility, chivalry. A lot of that really comes into this. Best friend of Indra. Thought to be like, God, my writing's terrible sometimes. Thought to be like Pushan, who always has a flock to lead. So they're really leaders. They're really out front. They like to have a play friend. I've since added a bunch. I haven't really looked at these yet, but I've been adding these. These are from the scriptures about, well, you can see Iron Man, Varuna, Mitra, Iron Man, the excellently wise, protect, prospers ever, free from scathe, whom, as with full hands enriched, whom they preserve from every foe, kings drive far away from him the troubles and enemies, leads them to safety and distress. And so these are all gods that sort of help us. We invoke them for prosperity in some way and keep us from getting too much trouble. What sacrifice Aditis ye heroes guide the path of the direct that may come might. And so the Aditis are those sun gods who kind of light our way, light our path. How, my friend, shall we prepare Aryaman and Mitra's loud, glorious food of Varuna? So they're just, yeah, so you can use them for all kinds of stuff. Oh, there's not many for Aryaman. Some of them there's just so many shlokas for them. It was crazy. Yeah, but we drive away the spotted hag, misfortune, malignity, all blessings to our children. Right. So these are prayers to, again, Savitu, Mitra, Varuna, Aryaman. And we come up with all these gods through Vedic astrology. They all have their nakshatras, they all have their place. The antelope foot, the bullock tooth, the cow terrifier, vapor form, the liquor, the spotted hag, drive them all away. So I love these sort of like old, like, I don't know, the cow terrifier, right? The antelope foot, they're all scared of these sort of creatures. So then we get the story of Shukra Devanjanik. Did you get a chance to read this sort of stuff? This was a really nice story. So how was it? Yeah, so it was King Janaka. He came to Shukradev, his Guruji, and Shukradev gave him a candle and said, okay, go through. I'll make that small, maybe you can read it. And he sort of said, go through every room and then come back and tell me what you saw. A big castle full of art, full of everything. And so he goes around and he's very careful with the candle. He doesn't want the candle to go out. So he goes around and goes all through the castle. And he comes back and Shukradev sort of says, well, what did you see? And he says, well, actually, I was so focused on the candle that I didn't see anything. I just saw the light. And so Shukradev is like, okay, now go back and use your candle to actually see what's everything. You have to tell me everything that's in the castle. So it's like, we don't want to miss the beauty of the world that's being revealed to us by the light. And so in a way, this is finding that balance between, say, a spiritual path and the enjoyment and the beauty of life as well. And so we don't want to get attached to the objects that are out there. We want to know that the power to see them is coming from the light that we have within, in a sense. So just as you keep your attention on the light, so should you keep your attention on God. Don't let the candle drop, don't let it fall, or your desire to slip away from God revealing that wisdom. But at the same time, we have to give part of our attention to performing our duties and seeing the wisdom that's and seeing the beauty that God is revealing to us. Yeah, so that indifference is spiritual. So anyways, you guys can read that stuff. And it belongs to both Phalgunis. Really strong connection, I find, through the Phalgunis. We get this patronage. I kind of talked about that. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. That's very sort of patronage, favors. A lot of that sort of stuff comes in with the patronage, patron-client relationships. Patron, very much representing priesthood, patriarchy, father-son type relationships also come into here. So I love this. So that Apollo as well, he's the main sun god in the West. And so this is where I'm making a great leap to and should be treated with skepticism. But I'm just trying to connect Apollo to this Ironman. Lion's tail. We got so Mago is the lion's head. This is the lion's tail, the back part. So this is a little bit like more friendly, more playful, more dealing with the people of the inner circle in a sense. And so the tail does a lot of sort of communications and things like that. And he uses the tail to swat flies. It's a little bit gentler side, but he still uses it as a weapon in a sense. And so it's still a bit dangerous. Don't want to go and pull the lion's tail or anything like that. Ultraviolet light, all of that comes in to here. We use that for purification and like things like that. Ultraviolet lights are vitamin D. So all of this stuff comes in like that. I want to do this for all the nakshatras, all the technologies that are used and related with ultraviolet light, because they're all gonna relate with Uttara Phalguni somehow. Yeah, so Shiva and Parvati's wedding, oh, that's where I wrote about it. And then the Tandava wedding dances too. So let's get into this if we can. The key themes, a lot of social work too, you'll see with people. People just want to, Uttara Phalgunis want to help people. They really do. That's really their main goal in life, is to help lift people up and help them. Sleep and awareness. I really need to write more about those key themes. So let's get into this. Some of these people. I don't know. Let me just, well, I'll leave it on this one. Well, let me just see something. That's Virgo, that's the Leo one. Yeah, here's the one with all the pictures, but you've seen the pictures, I think, right? Just look at this very quickly. Yeah, we got the nice sage that rules this. So there's some good pictures here. What is that? That's Iron Man himself. He's got the noose as well. The noose is what binds us. And so you make a vow and you get kind of bound by that vow. With that, there's the King Yannick Hall of Mirrors. This is, yeah, the whole patron and the patronage thing going on. Yeah, the patronage system, ultraviolet radiation. Yeah, this is where we get the sunburn. So they can burn quite powerful and very, very hot. A lot of heat, too much pitta and Uttara Phalguni. It's very, very, very hot. And the light can be almost overpowering for a lot of people. There we get those Rudrakshas. The beads. Yeah, there you get a nice shot of them there. I've never seen a fresh Rudraksha. I really want to. They grow in Nepal. At some point in time, I'll go to Nepal and go to Rudraksha bead collecting or something like that. Some of the main parts they do that are way, way out there, though, to make it a great trip. You like that kind of foraging. You can gather up those Rudraksha beads and then sell them after, actually. Because they're, anyways, very popular holy beads. That was one thing I noticed. The theme kept coming up over and over, the blues. Everything related with blues, the king of blues, like all of these sort of blue things kept coming up with this. Here we get some names. The purple, the color of royalty.
I got my ascendant in Uttara Phalguni.
Oh, your ascendant's Uttara Phalguni. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a lot of your independence is running through that. So how do you see Uttara Phalguni working out in your life then?
Well, for example, I just got land, right, with friends.
Okay.
and I'm the one in charge, like doing the communication, and like I'm kind of like the leader person in this situation because there needs to be one, and I feel good in that position, and I'm like, yeah, I guess that's one of the ways. Also like the whole thing with the left-handed path, like when I was little, I went to a Christian school, and they always told us the classic thing like, oh, right-handed is God and left-handed is the devil.
Yeah.
And I right-handed anyways, naturally, but like ever since then, every time I had the choice to take the left path or the right path, I was like, I'm taking the devil's path, and I would take the left path always. And I still to this day think about the right and left like God and the devil, and I always choose left for some
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Oh, and the whole thing with rest, like that's something that I've been, I guess, like assimilating more and more. Like I always felt like I was a tired person, but it's not that I'm a tired person, it's that I value that rest, you know, like because I do have a lot of light and energy, but I need a lot of that rest and recuperation. And it's not just any rest. It's not like, oh, watching like TV. It's like actual like connecting and rebuilding energy. Like I have to work to find that specific rest, you know, that works for me.
Yeah, that
And the
wellness
whole thing with too
rest.
much light, yeah, I find that not a lot of people can be friends with me because they try to dilute my light in some ways, you know, like I'll start feeling, I don't know, people try to dilute my light, and my best friends are people who shine with me, you know. So
Yeah.
I guess that's the way I relate with it. So I
Yeah, you'd connect, you'd need more independent people, say in your friends circle. Well, you're still fairly young, but what you'll probably notice, and you probably noticed already, as people coming to you for advice, and you sort of acting as that patron, that sort of boss, coming to you for favors maybe and little things like that. And
yeah.
you're this and
Oh, and that whole thing about like, you know, helping people and lifting people up, like that's like for sure. Like my friends, I'll always want to see them shine. I'll always put my light on them, you know.
yeah.
And oh, and blues music is literally the only like I always say, oh, I could drive, you know, for hours if just listening to blues music, or I could go through any bad thing and listen to blues and I would be okay.
Oh,
So
perfect.
blues music is close to my heart. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny how these little themes, even something like the blue plays through in
Yeah.
it all. And it's funny what you're saying about the left hand too, like
Yeah. Yeah.
made that point to go that way when you can. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's so fascinating.
And just because they told me that it was bad also, you know, and I was like,
Yeah, well, that's part of the fascination. I think that's why, well, I also studied so much of the Tantra and the left-handed stuff because everybody said, don't study that, it's dangerous. And it's like,
yeah.
don't study this? Oh, okay. I won't.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like I hear the opposite.
yeah, yeah. I don't think I have any. Let me just open this quickly. You can see the charts now? Do I have any Uttara Phalguni at all? Nothing. Nothing, even in my Navamsha. Nothing in my work. I don't know Uttara Phalguni. I'm not that kind of boss, I guess. Um, well, I think what it is with the Uttara Phalguni, because they do a lot of investing, and it's that part of sun, I think, where you really, for real true creativity, you have to invest something of yourself. You really have to give something yourself to it. You have to take some sort of personal risk in a way. And that's kind of the Uttara Phalguni, risking something of themselves. And so it's also like, even with the patronage side of it, they're giving something of themselves to help lift that other person up. It's not what can you say? It's not that they're just like helping people without any risk to themselves as well, in a sense. There's this really, they really dedicate and devote themselves to it as well. It's interesting. We get someone like Oliver Stone we think of him, he did a lot of these documentaries and stuff. And well, if we think of the sun is where we're shining the light. And so he was really shining the light on these powerful figures and patronage deals that were sort of going on through his documentaries, and really risked a part of himself. And at different times of his career, I think he's been a little bit blacklisted from Hollywood and all of that because of that risk. This is, well, we see Harry, Prince of Wales, has this. Very kingly, very powerful leaders. Ron DeSantis, I don't know if you're following American politics, but he's running for, well, he's kind of running against Trump right now to be the leader of the Republican Party and then run for president. Nobody expects that he'll win this time, but in the future, he could be the president of the USA. Someone like Barry White, being very independent in his songwriting and his career and stuff like that. Oliver Stone, Richard Gatling, that's actually the guy who made the Gatling gun. Resno Piano, I can never remember who these people are sometimes. Oh, I got Shakyam's son there twice. So I think he's just a young guy, like just 16 now, but I think he's probably going to go the music route as well, and entertainment. Someone like John McAfee was very, very independent. Narendra Modi, BB King. Narendra Modi is interesting. Again, that blue. And I don't know if that connects him somehow with sort of Hindu nationalism in some way. I'm not sure what Moody's doing that's so blue. Howard Taft, he was like a general guy. I don't have this one organized at all. Squire Wimple, I think he was an engineer. Very broad. Tegan and Sarah Quinn, they're musicians from Calgary, actually. Hank Williams, you don't need any introduction to him. Interesting, BB King and Hank Williams, see them together here because they're very similar figures. They're these big, really overpowering almost in their field. They just dominate. I think anytime they would walk into a space, they just sort of dominate that space. And so that's kind of interesting. They're quite similar that way. Stephen King just dominates in when it comes to book publishing and things like that. I'm not exactly sure. I've looked at Peter Smith, artificial intelligence. Leo has a lot, and the sun itself. And so Uttara Phalguni, I think, would really connect a lot with our intelligence. I just want to look up his chart and see if he has. Come on now, open. I'm just kind of curious if he has any Rahu there to make it artificial intelligence. What was his name? Peter Smith. Where's his Rahu? No. Oh, sun's in that part. Oh, Ketu's aspecting that sun. That's interesting. I don't know if yeah, he had no birth time available, but I kind of rectified this. Because that fifth house is all about intelligence, and see, and you get the sun in there, you get Mercury, and you get Ketu aspecting, I thought, to make some artificial new age intelligence in a sense, without boundaries. So I think that chart might be working for him. I could imagine someone working artificial intelligence to have a Ketu in the Ascendant be a little bit of a strange dude in some ways, belonging with some different sort of groups. So I think that might be working. This Mars Saturn making an exchange be very good for science and bringing a couple things together. With the Rahu, it'd be a couple things together that don't normally belong together, you could say. So some unusual way, like intelligence with a robot, for example. That sun is also like Yogkataka planet, so very, very powerful for career, higher knowledge, higher wisdom. Rahu is bringing Well, the Saturn Mars is sort of science, but then the Rahu is really like science and technology and making him quite knowledgeable and all that sort of stuff. So I think this chart is working for him. Quite a powerful chart in that respect. If you look at that Saturn and Rahu from the moon, now this is 0 degrees. So if I were to change his time just a little bit, but from this perspective, it puts that Saturn and Rahu in the 9th house from his moon. So again, highlighting that higher wisdom of science and research in Scorpio. So quite a powerful chart he has. Here we get this sun in 5th house. I don't know if I've listed it there, but 4th lord in the 5th house and it being sun. These kind of people are going to be really intelligent, really sharp-minded people, really creative, able to come up with like really creative, original ideas. Really good that way. And just they'd be excellent leaders of their field as well, no doubt about it. So we get that sort of thing. Interesting to see he's currently just started a sun period, which is interesting. And so, well, I guess now artificial intelligence, I think with Chat GPT coming out, did you ever play with Chat GPT? It's kind of neat. You can just sort of ask it questions and it answers. It sometimes gives you wrong answers, and I give it shit sometimes, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize what you were meaning. But yeah, it's kind of, I've been using it this past week. I started playing with it for the first time for just doing astrology research. I'll be like, what's the mythical symbolism of the color blue, for example, right? And so it comes up with all these kind of, so it's like I'm almost using it like a personal assistant. It's so far it hasn't proved to be any smarter than I am. It's actually not as smart as I am. Even it doesn't know as much about these things, but it's useful still. Like a personal assistant, you ask them a question and they tell me a bunch of stuff I already know, but then they go, oh yeah, then there's that. Yeah, I forgot about that, you know? So it's kind of nice to play with. And so I can imagine Peter Smith, someone working with AI, is just like now is going to be in a, oh, someone just showed up. There's Emmett. So yeah, now is, I think, going to be a good period for Peter Smith here with his sun period, his 4th lord. Might be for teaching or stuff, and some magic's coming through with his teaching, but also he could very well, especially go, namaste, Emmett. Especially his Jupiter, again, I just came up with this. This might not actually be his chart, but his Jupiter rules this 9th house coming here. So teaching, research, and working with a lot of research really gets highlighted in his chart quite strongly. From the moon again, research in the 8th house coming into the 5th house from the moon. And then this Scorpio also is very careful, new age, sort of cutting edge research. And so, and his sun then becomes 4th lord coming in the 5th house. I think this guy's going to be having a great period with the with all the AI that's coming out. Probably could be some investments also paying off, because well, Uttara Phalguni is all about investments. The 5th house is all about investments. Sun is all about investments. And so he has that with Mercury, who's in his own house here. Mercury rolls this this 2nd house. So it's like very powerful time. This guy's making all kinds of money right now, basically, and having a lot of fun doing it too, because that 5th house, it's not just investment, it's about fun. So there's Peter Smith. My take on his Uttara Phalguni now as sun. Let's have a look at someone like David Frawley. I don't know if you guys have come across his books yet. I've talked about him before.
I've read a couple of his books, Ayurvedic Through the Stars, and right now I'm reading his other book, Astrology of the Seers.
Okay. Not sure if I know the Astrology of the Spears. Maybe I haven't read that one. Oh, the Astrology of the Seers. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, they're both quite good books. Really good for learning the foundations. But his his students are writing especially the astrology. But anyways, his students, I think, are writing this book, and some of them are Western astrology students. Yeah, you can get this by you can easily find a free PDF of this as well if anybody's interested in that. Or if you can't, then I can send you one. I've got a whole library of this stuff in PDF. I preferred books. I read the books, but then someone gave me the PDF, so I have. I should have a quick look through them sometimes just to see what if I'm missing anything. But you have to be careful with Frawley because a lot of his stuff is written by Western astrologers, and they're actually writing about Western astrology and not Vedic astrology. There's some subtle differences on some things. But for early learning, Frawley's really, really good. And then you have to just throw him out the window eventually. And so here's his chart.
Yeah. He gives a good base, I find, but you have to dive into it yourself at the end of the day to
You
get,
have to go beyond Frawley.
yeah.
He's sort of limited a little bit. But again, so they say this is an AA rating for his chart. That means from birth record. And so this is David Frawley's chart. Whereas oh wow, look at that 12th house, Uttara Phalguni, Uttara Phalguni, Uttara Phalguni, Ketu, Sun, Saturn, all in Uttara Phalguni. And then he's got Mercury and Venus and Purva Phalguni. And so he's really a Phalgun. He's like he's a true Smurf. But the thing is, this is all going for him. It's all in the 12th house. It's all kind of going outer. A lot of his patronage is somehow bringing a loss, foreign patronage. Now he's one of these guys, and this is part of the reason I don't really like David Frawley, because he's sort of really embraced the Hindutva, the right-wing sort of extremist Hinduism. Now, these people have a lot of money, and they've sort of tried to court me a couple times as well. And they find out just very quickly, I'm just not interested in it. But if I wanted, I could go Hindutva path, and oh God, I'd be set up, man. That would be if I wanted to be a career astrologer, if I wanted to be a career philosopher, I could just sort of embrace the Hindutva. They would just lift me right up. I would be a big Guruji in no time. And they would be happy and I would not be. And so that's what David Frawley, and that's a lot of this 12th house stuff that he has going on here, actually. Making his gains by sun, making his gains from foreign places. His Saturn is there, so his education and all this like 4th house, 5th house is also going overseas. Saturn can give really good for sort of overseas service, teaching overseas. He probably does sort of support a lot of initiatives in India and maybe other countries as well. Maybe less so. I'm pretty sure, yeah, he's an American fellow. Probably less so in America. But maybe he's also supporting there. I don't know much about his life. He's got like the university, the whole like, yeah, he's got all kinds of ashrams and centers for higher learning. A lot of things to do with education come through Uttara Phalguni. They always want to be teaching and uplifting through education, uplifting through the arts, using these things to lift people up, right? That's what the sun wants to do. And so Uttara Phalguni generally, but the sun there. What else? And then he's got Ketu there, which is sort of well, Ketu is actually what probably gives him a bit of the mysticism and stuff like that. Kind of removes those boundaries to 12th house, to the dreams, to the sort of collective subconscious. And maybe that's what Frawley connected to, because really his books were some of the early books in Vedic astrology for Westerners. And so tapped into that sort of early subconscious awareness. And now it's become very, very popular. But he certainly tapped into something early in his path that way. And even for embracing this Hindutva, he was sort of born at this perfect time, where he probably actually got into it before the world sort of realized with the that there were right-wing nationalists. It was just these sort of nice Hindu people trying to help him out at first, I imagine. And then he got carried away with it. So it's interesting right now. He's got a Mercury Venus period. Mercury Venus, they're making a very powerful special yoga in his 11th house. And so just right now, I imagine David Frawley's making some money because Venus is 8th lord. It's maybe hidden wealth, hidden money, hidden gains, secret gains. And so maybe also making some sort of secret payoffs and things like that. But he must be making a huge ton of money right now at the moment as we speak because of this Mercury Venus combination. Very powerful yoga in the 11th house. Connections. This is also his network of young students. And I imagine like a lot of the big yogi gurus today, it's mostly young female students because of the Venus. And so very big connection to these sort of student females, that sort of thing really, really comes through. The Uttara Phalguni, a lot of them, I'm sure, a lot of artists, a lot of sort of even powerful artists he's probably connected with, writers, communicators, media sort of personnel, people, all of that, very well connected and making money through all those connections and all those different channels. And that's probably a lot to do with his books. Again, I've mentioned how his students probably write a lot of his books, actually. It's like, well, it's like even like you write a book, you're just some young person, you write a book, you study some philosophy, some Vedic astrology, you get all the points down, you write a nice book. Nobody cares about your book. Everybody cares about David Frawley's book. So you put David Frawley's name on your book and it sells 1 million copies. And he's happy because now he's got another book under his name, right? So it's kind of, and then the student also gets a little bit from that as well. So
Yeah, they call that ghostwriters.
yeah, well, ghostwriters, that's sort of the ghostwriters. I sometimes, because it's not even quite ghostwriting, like when you're working on the level of, say, PhD or higher wisdom, you're not calling your students ghostwriters, really. Maybe you put their name on the work as well, but your name goes top. And maybe you don't even claim that, like, he might not even claim to have written these books. He's maybe just the editor, right? And so, yeah. So there's different ways that kind of works out.
I'd be curious too, because you mentioned, I'd be curious to kind of look at Jordan Peterson's chart because he typically only attracts young men.
Okay. Let's have a quick look at his chart then. You can see the chart I've got on the screen, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's also, I think that's a myth about Jordan Peterson because he actually more women buy his books than men do. Yeah, I think that is a bit of they tried to, because young white men are very bad. They're the evil of the world these days.
Yeah,
And
we
so
are.
trying to make Jordan Peterson seem like the evil of the world because all these little devils want to follow him. And so that was supposed to be a slur against him. I don't exactly understand how, but that's what they were trying. Oh, only young, angry white men follow you. And it's like, is that supposed to be a bad thing? Like, I don't get it. But again, I don't think he had a good birth time, but this is what I rectified. I wanted to put that Sun and Mercury in his ascendant, making him very intelligent. Jupiter in the 10th house, connecting his career to higher wisdom and stuff like that. 10th Lord going in the 9th house, also sort of going away from the rat race and taking tenure in some university sort of setting. Ketu is there, so abandoning all of that. And so there, if we look at, I'm looking at his Sun, his Mars is up there on in the 12th house, 7th Lord up in the 12th house. That would suggest a lot of distance between him and his wife. I don't know. It sometimes sounds like they get along, but it also sounds like they've had a really, really rough and rocky sort of relationship. She's also been sick in the hospital quite a bit of her time. So that's that Mars going up into 12th. Where's from his moon? Because from his moon, we look 11th house and he's getting a Venus Rahu there, the 11th house. So his gains would be coming through a lot of women. It's interesting because I would think, okay, Venus rules the 6th house. And so I wonder, because I thought like, well, Venus and Rahu, that might almost be like the transgender women or something like that. Because not a real woman, because Rahu. And that's actually where he gets a lot of his flack, is through that. But that's also in his 3rd house. So that's sometimes kind of his message in a sense, is the message he's sending out is like not a real woman. In a
And he
way,
definitely pushes that too, right?
yeah, he does. That is something he kind of pushes. That's been a big part of his message, and his messaging. But generally his message comes across, on one hand, it seems fairly balanced. He's got that balance of an intellectual, but somewhere, especially once he started making money from controversy, then he started pushing that controversy much more. And that's probably that Rahu. Rahu's very good, like a balanced message. Venus is very nice for media type stuff. Rahu bringing in the technology much more. And he did that a little bit early. Like he was just a teacher in his classroom, videotaping his classes. Which was kind of like, at that time, it was kind of like embracing modern technology. And so he's done very well with his Rahu. I don't know. I would think, if anything, the angry men are up in 12th house costing him money. Yeah, to a certain degree. And then, well, that's in the 8th house from his moon. And so maybe there's some transformation that he's bringing to these men. Maybe they're also helping him transform and change his message. Maybe he started talking to them. I know one of the first talks I ever heard from Jordan Peterson was about toxic masculinity. And he was talking about these friends in the oil patch in northern Alberta. And I thought, oh wow, you're some smart guy from northern Alberta that knows these oil patch guys like I used to know it. It was a story of a lot of my friends, a lot of the people I knew when I was young went down this path, and anyways became this toxic masculine. And well, did a lot of them have killed themselves, same as Jordan Peterson's friend, which is a lot of times where that toxic masculine goes, because it can go 2 directions. A lot of times it doesn't want to hurt anybody, actually, the masculine. And so they just say, well, if I'm going to be such a harmful being on this world, I just get rid of myself then. So yeah, there's Jordan Peterson's. His Aruda Lagna is in Uttara Phalguni, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys have studied Aruda Lagna yet. Aruda Lagna is what the world thinks we are, who just like off first impressions, the world generally thinks things about you. And so that's not bad in his case, because it would align with his moon chart. And so the world kind of knows him emotional. We see his emotional being. And so maybe that's Jordan Peterson wearing his heart on his sleeve a little bit. That's something Uttara Phalgunis will really wear their heart on their sleeve. That's really something they'll do. They really let people know what their causes are, and these kinds of things, what they care about, and really will push that out there quite strongly. So let's come back to this then. If there's any charts you ever want to see, just say so and we'll stop and have a look at it. Don't know if we're gonna Fran Prashant, she's a gem of a person. One of these people I met, not her real name at all. But Fran was I met her in Varanasi, and she's like, let's have a look at her chart because it's actually pretty cool. So you can see she's got this Jupiter and Moon and Ardra. Anyway, she's been studying Abhinava Gupta's aesthetics, theories of aesthetics, actually. That's that Venus in its own house. She's like, and Venus is, so he's making a Mahapurush Yoga, very powerful Mahapurush, because there's no other planets involved in this. And then when we look at these four center houses, this is the core of people. And so her core, like she's like 100% this sort of master of aesthetics. And so she's doing her PhD in aesthetics, but she also does theater, she does art, she sings, she dances, she just does everything. And she's just well, with the Venus here, she's like, she's always the most beautiful girl in the room. Just like there's so much balance to her and the way she styles herself, very feminine beauty, just almost like a perfect woman in a lot of ways. That has to do with the Venus making this powerful, really powerful Mahapurush Yoga, just really filling her whole core, and this Jupiter Moon coming into the night. Now they have nothing to do with Uttara Phalguni. They're coming up in her 12th house, which is sort of the 4th house from the moon as well. And so she probably spends a lot of money staying fit, staying healthy, because of her perfect, like Venus compromises all the time. And so any anger, any aggression she has is comes out in a little bit of a subconscious way. All her masculine features, the Mars and the Sun are all in the 12th house. They come out just in this sort of subconscious way. Otherwise, she's really like this perfect woman kind of figure, like that. Really the master of aesthetics, and that really comes out through the Venus and Swati. And so maybe we'll see her chart a little bit more in the Venus period. And see a lot of her, so she's born in Italy, but she's been living in Germany almost forever. Moved sort of all the family wealth into Germany. Her prosperity comes from Germany. Her friends are all these foreign friends. A lot of people traveling. She's traveled quite a bit as well. Her partner, generally she's getting together with these foreign partners as well. And so we see all this sort of 12th house stuff coming there through Saturn, Mars, and she gets quite high partners as well. How'd she end up in that position? Yeah, so like that. She's often ends up dating, like she was dating a professor for a while. Anyways, like this, she dates quite big actor in Bollywood guy she was dating, and anyways gets some quite does quite well for herself in that. And Moon in 12th and Jupiter, I don't know if she's ever going to leave university. She's just, that's her comfort place. She just loves the university setting, hanging out and all that sort of stuff. So she's there.
I'd be interested to look at Leonard Cohen's chart, because I feel like he's very much like, I can see how
The famous blue raincoat.
yeah, and also like he's the one like going to that weird like Greek island to write, and like everybody was like, you know, he was going away from all his wives, all his girlfriends, just to dedicate to creativity, you know, like kind of taking that left path. And like
Yeah. Yeah, he went and lived in Greece for a long time. Before there was electricity. Was it Greece or Italy? I think it was Greece. He bought someplace before
it's
that.
this island called Hydra in Greece.
Yeah. So this also shows birth record, so we can kind of go with this. Sun and Ascendant both Uttara Phalguni. Very independent, right? He was always one to go his own way. The famous blue raincoat, we get the blue coming up in that as well. A little bit like he was almost kind of this bluesy sort of lounge singer in a way. And so that blue sort of comes up there. in a lot of different ways. His personality, I think, he became kind of a foreign personality to Montreal, very almost global in who he became, a little bit of a dreamy personality. Funny, Venus in 12th house. Men or women are often a little bit sex symbols when Venus is going into 12th house. They sort of get into other people's imagination in a way, like that. What else has he got going on? That's all happening in the, that's all going on in the 8th house from his moon. And so that's also bringing that sense of like that privacy, that seclusion, that he's looking for, and needs that for his creativity. All the Sun, Mercury. I don't know if he's, what else he got? Mercury's not Uttara Phalguni, but yeah, that's bringing his career as who he is. Always going to be a little bit considered by a lot of people, probably considered a little bit immature. One of these guys who never really quite grew up. And that's because Mercury was Sun and Mercury in the Ascendant, like that. He has this bad angle between his Sun and his moon. And his moon and his Ascendant. And so that always brings some friction into a person. It's like, well, it brings moon in the 6th house is always going to bring a bit of emotional problems somehow. But then that his sense of creativity, his Sun, the way he expresses himself, who he is always a bit of a shock to his emotional being. And so his emotional self is quite uncomfortable with his, like, who he actually is in some ways. And that's because that 6th house of moon, it's in Satta Bishak. So there could be some healing. There could be some intravenous drug use. I don't
I
know if
have
you got into the needle.
something that it made me think of.
Hmm?
I just realized, because like, you know how you were saying Uttara Phalguni can bring like those like left side like tantric practices and things like that, like the whatever. One of his big like gurus was this guy that I forget his name, but he was like a Buddhist monk, and he would just get like just drink really strong alcohol, this monk, and meditate. And he would go with him and get absolutely fucked up and meditate through this way of getting drunk. And he has a whole book of poems about it. Like, I read it and it's really good. And like, you know, like how his creativity came from this kind of higher source of light, but through toxicity, and people kept like bashing on him, you know, like and saying like, oh, Leonard Cohen, like he's not a good man and whatever. But that's just the way that he knew he had like that Uttara, like he knew that the way that he had to take to be creative, and it was not the conventional one. Like, but this guru figure like make me think of Uttara Phalguni.
Uttara Phalguni really gives that power to take their own path. And he's uplifted so many people. Like, we think of that sort of left-handed path. We think of someone like Johnny Cash. I don't know if he's got Uttara Phalguni placements, but Johnny Cash, the Man in Black, they talk about him like he's a saint now, really. And I just read an article actually the other day about Leonard Cohen in Montreal, and apparently like they're just like, the author of this was blown away about how much Montreal has embraced Leonard Cohen since he died, basically treating him like a saint. And they're expecting like a street to be named Saint Cohen Street anytime in Montreal now. But that's that left-handed path where you're drinking, you're doing drugs, you're not following any of the orthodoxy, but people still see you like a saint, like a great sort of being. And that's Uttara Phalguni has a lot to do. They're just going to do what they want.
So would Ram Dass have that too then?
Well, Ram Dass was a little bit, he had a lot of fear a lot of his life. No, he's got nothing in Uttara Phalguni. No, nothing there in Uttara Phalguni. Oh. here we can see Ramdas was more of that Jupiterian guru. Like, okay, sure, he broke the rules. He was a gay man, you could say in a way, but he followed, like he kept that a secret for a long, long time. And he was terrified people were going to find out about his relationships. And that's that Saturn going 8th Lord into the 7th house, that fear and restrictiveness in the relationships. And so he was terrified to come out for the longest time. And then, of course, when he did finally came out, nobody cared. Like, even today, I think a lot of people are still even surprised that Ram Dass is gay, but then it's like they don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, whereas some people, you find out they're gay and everybody goes, oh my God, I can't believe they're gay, right?
Yeah, because they're like
No.
a sports person or whatever, but because he's like the spiritual figure, it doesn't matter. Because like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. He just got a pass on the whole thing for some reason. Nobody cared. But he had a lot of that fear, right? So he was following more of that Jupiter. Like, he's quite orthodox, Ram Dass, in a lot of ways. Like modern and unique, but still quite following orthodoxy in a lot of ways. Be here now. Yeah, he's got Jupiter and Ardra, so giving a little bit of a wild man sort of to him a little bit, because his beliefs becoming a little bit unconventional because of Ardra.
I'm Jupiter and Audra.
You're Jupiter and Ardra? Okay, I'm sure you don't have any unconventional beliefs at all. You're just straight and narrow.
No wild man thing going on either.
No, not at all. I can tell by your hair. Straight and narrow kind of guy. Yep, that's you. So yeah, so that's that Ardra. It's going to be unconventional somehow. It's going to get a little bit wild. They believe in the wilderness. What they often want to do, though, as well is expand wild territories, expand the territory where you can cut loose and be wild. Maybe land conservation, where you're trying to expand the wilderness in your own yard. Like, you might be more prone to, like, just let the wild grasses, like a wild grasses garden. Yeah, I'm not going to mow my lawn. That's wild grasses. Anyways, lazy. Anyway, so yeah, so anyways, but my mother was like that. I don't know if she's got any now we're going back to Ardra, but you can get a sneak peek at my mama's chart here. So she's also Jupiter ascendant. Oh, no, her job was a little bit Uttara Phalguni. She was justice system. So that's interesting. See, her job, the mid-cusp, that relates with career, because she was almost like the patron who would sit at her desk, right? And the clients would come in and seek advice for her. And she would be, kind of leveraging a little bit of contacts as well to try to help uplift these people who are in trouble with the law, essentially. And so her job was very Uttara Phalguni in that way. It's kind of interesting. And the Ardra, yeah, she's got the Venus in Ardra here. Where is that? Not connecting with your yard. Well, my mom always had the wild grasses. Oh, it's a wild grasses garden, Michael. Don't worry about mowing it. Okay, Mom. Andrea, yeah, go ahead.
Do you know what's his name? Oh, Masanobu Fukuoka.
Who?
Masanobu Fukuoka. He's this Japanese guy who like invented the lazy gardening method. Made me think about it.
Okay.
But he's really, really cool, and I would be curious to look at his chart like one day. But yeah.
We'll see if they have his birth details.
Yeah.
Astro theme or whatever. If you got his birth details, send them to me and I'll make his chart too.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's also, if there's like anybody you think like I should have that chart of that person, especially if they're AA rated birth details, but send me their name and just say like, Mike, you should do this person's chart.
I think it's one of those cases where he's like really old and lived in a tiny village in Japan, so nobody knows like which time he was born, Yeah.
Yeah, well, even if they know his day of birth,
Yeah.
I'll make his chart and spend my life suffering trying to rectify the damn thing. Um, so, oh, that's interesting. Sanjay T, my Guruji for astrology. He's also got his son is here. He's the eldest brother in his family, so it is kind of this sort of sense that if anybody in his family or even in his neighborhood, he's sort of this patron that's always willing to help people, always helping everybody out. Whoever comes to him, he doesn't really offer it, but anybody that comes to him, he helps them. We see the Queen, Prince Harry, and Queen Elizabeth. That's that, I think, relating with the royal purple and that sort of thing. I think there's a good chance Prince Harry might be a king someday. He's the current king's son, isn't he? No, I don't know. I don't know the royalties very well. But anyways, so let's just go through this. What is this? This is the Uttara Phalguni. Let's go through this version because I've updated it a little bit. Yeah, that idea of carrying themselves to the royal baron, very straight. They can sometimes get fat, but they're usually big boned people. Oh yeah, there's Leonard Cohen. There's like that. Ken Kesey. So let's just kind of go through this and see what we got. Anything interesting here? This is, oh, this is the sun. This is just that first pada of Uttara Phalguni. You can see in the 5th house, a few powerful people are on DeSantis. Prince William, powerful celebrity, political entitlements. That's quite well in the 5th house. That's like, it's obviously it would. Suffering from debts. Apparently, I didn't do much in the sun version, but I did a bunch of research on Uttara Phalguni somewhere. Is that? Yeah, it should be here. Huh. So Howard Taft. See, it's interesting. We get this on the Virgo side of this. So we mentioned earlier how Uttara Phalguni, it's similar to Purva in that it's looking for rest. But this is much more concerned with rest as wellness rather than rest as enjoyment. And so then you get the 3 parts in the Virgo. And now we're really going on, well, you could say almost dual use type technologies also come through Virgo. So things that can be used for wellness, but they can also be used for war to a certain degree. I think probably William there. Maybe I did this. Sorry guys, I'm getting I've got too many documents open for Sun now, and so I'm getting confused if I do the research on this document or this document, the full document or the partial. Well, here we go, a little bit about the venture capitalism. Oh, now we're in Moon to Leo. So there we got these interesting, someone like Stephen Hawking, Moon and Leo emotionally. I think he feels he's a very independent for someone who's handicapped, you could say, to his degree. Stephen Hawking's is very independent that way. Sai Baba, I think you've heard of him before. He was so this is Satya Sai Baba. I think this is the modern Sai Baba guy. Kind of a chubby fellow. There was an original Sai Baba who was like an old hippie. Little bandana on his head and a little white beard like I've got going on now. Tall and skinny fellow. You see him sitting on rocks all the time. But then the modern Sai Baba is a shyster. He's a bit of a trickster, but he's followed by millions. He's just beloved. But he does these little sleight of hand tricks. He does some card tricks. He does a little bit of palm reading to get people on board. So Satya Sai Baba is kind of anyways, a big boss man figure, but we should open his chart and have a quick look. I haven't looked at his chart in a while. Satya Sai Baba. So yeah, this is the one born in 1926. I'm not sure if this is his chart or not, but there he is. Ascendant in Uttara Phalguni, I think giving him the ability to do the arts and entertainment sort of stuff. Entertainment magic in a sense is what I would say he does. And then his moon, and then his Ketu is aspecting that. And so that's his ability to, anyways, not be too concerned about his personal identity to a certain degree. I think then the Mars in the 9th house, let's see. Mars in the 9th house might be, they don't even know the day he was born, but Mars in the 9th house could be him weaponizing. Mars like to weaponize things, so weaponizing the higher philosophies, the higher wisdom stuff. And then his Jupiter is debilitated. This sort of matches him because he's a shyster. He's not a spiritual person at all, but although he's beloved by millions as a spiritual guru, you can find things on YouTube that catch him in all his tricks and stuff like that. I think like a lot of these gurus, he's got all that stuff going in 4th house. He's like the king of the home, the king of his castle, the king of his big ashram. A little bit secret, or maybe a private ashram. Not anybody can get into it. I don't know. But I would think with this Mars rulership in Scorpio in the 4th, it would probably be quite exclusive, sort of an ashram in a lot of ways. And then the Saturn is also there, making it very well protected and sort of secure to a certain degree. But Venus is also there. What is it? Venus and Mercury. So it might be open to the public because Mercury, 11th Lord, coming into there. And Venus usually just protects itself with its beauty. And little groups coming in by Venus as well. There's his work. Everything's going on in the home and the ashram sort of setting. So let's move on. Stephen Hawking, we saw, was sun and they have sun and moon. I didn't look at his chart, did I? Let's look at his. So it's interesting. We mentioned, where is he? We mentioned that Uttara Phalguni might relate with the spinal cord as well. And I don't think, yeah, so the accuracy of this is in question. A C rating, it probably came from like a news report or something like that. But anyway, still nonetheless, this is the one I'm using. He's got this pretty harsh Mars Saturn, which can be the tailbone itself, but it's usually the inner, and then the back and the bones here. What else is going on? And Saturn can be the bones and the, I don't know, is it a problem with his bones that he has? Hawking, it must be something, or is it a muscle problem predominantly? Anyways, this looks like his bones certainly would be having a problem. And the structural side of things. And what else? His son isn't that badly afflicted, but he would have problems due to problems with growths. And the fat on his body. He doesn't seem like a very fat guy, but anyways, fat collection and fat deposits would be his because of Jupiter here. But I'm not sure.
He's got ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and that's a loss of control of the muscles based on the neurons in the brain.
Okay, interesting. So he's got Rahu aspecting Sun. I think I've come to this one in his chart before. I'm not sure if this is, I don't think this time is correct for Stephen Hawking. Which then we could look at the moon. But if he's born later in the day, the moon will have also moved. If he's born in the afternoon, for example, the moon will have also moved to Virgo. But it would still be Uttara Phalguni. So yeah, very good chance the moon would stay Uttara Phalguni, whatever it's in. And this might work because from moon, this gives that Saturn Mars really sort of structured science, really like the hard sciences that gives. And then Jupiter also makes professor or guru, transformed through that, a lot of personal growth through teaching for him. So moon chart is working for him, I think, but the others aren't. But again, that independence, he's probably given a lot of money and resources to education programs and science and things like this, and probably even research for things like something like Lou Gehrig's. Sun or Mars is often the muscles of the body. Saturn is the skeletal system, and you've got Rahu aspecting this, and so you've got, we would have to really sit down and look at it to sort it out and figure out like why Lou Gehrig's. But certainly there's going to be a major, maybe because Aries, there's a problem from the brain and starting in the brain that way. And so maybe that's what's maybe that would give us some clues to go to brain problems. So that's kind of interesting. Who else we get? We get someone like Bill Cosby. I think there could be that like parental, especially moon is there, that parental, but the more the father parent, the provider side of things. Again, that goes with being a patron, is kind of the provider. Bill Cosby's been the big papa of the Cosby Show. Maybe you guys are too young for that now, but I grew up with the Cosby Show when I was a kid. He was such a nice dad. And then you get someone like Serena Williams. She got into the whole venture capitalism, and she's invests actually in a lot of like health and wellness stuff, right? Like therapy and physiotherapy type stuff. And quite involved in all of that sort of stuff. She's the tennis player, if you don't know, the angry tennis player, if you don't know who she is. Susan Miller, she was the sun sign astrologer. So she really, like Uttara Phalguni, she brought us the sun. She shone her light. And really, I think even Vedic astrologers should read her book, The Sun Signs, because she really she brought astrology to the West. She really popularized astrology in the West. And so we have to thank her as one of our kind of our patrons as well. She's one of our gurus in a sense. It's a nice book. You'll find her book at any garage sale. Every garage sale has a copy of the sun signs. So just like go garage sailing someday. So Anne Hesh, she was what's her name? She was one of Ellen DeGeneres's partners. And so anyway, I don't get a lot of I don't meet a lot of transgender people. I know some gay people. I know a few, but a lot of times when I'm looking for charts, I'm like, what in a chart is making a person gay? I have to reach out and find these star relationships and these famous people and figure out what reason and purpose they were gay.
Isn't it air placements?
What's that?
Isn't it air placements and like Pisces placements?
Yeah, well, a lot of it's Mercury or Saturn placements. Let's just open. I don't know if Anne Hesh had a good birth time, but we'll open her chart here and have a look.
My sister is trans, if you want to look at her chart.
Okay, yeah, so we can have a look at that. Oh yeah, this shows an AA from birth record. So here we go. And so while we see the Rahu, right away we see Rahu in her 12th. And so something unusual, unconventional relationships. Not necessarily Venus isn't necessarily going to make a person gay. But then we see also her Jupiter is also with the nodes, the ruler of her 7th house. Also, so maybe she's bisexual to a certain degree. Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Andrian. That's your sister's time? Wonderful. I'll make the chart after. Charlie, perfect. So And we could actually, I could probably make her chart now, but we'll leave that, takes a minute to do that. But here we see the Jupiter, Venus and Jupiter. Jupiter is usually the husband in a woman's chart. And so Ketu with Jupiter, quite often, they're not interested in marriage. They are not interested in anybody telling them what to do or giving them any direction, this sort of thing. They can often have a lot of these people coming through their lives, but they don't listen.
And she's a sun in Rohini, so that means like that the natural caretaker, the natural wife, right?
Yeah, the perfect wife is Rohini, and so maybe she also expresses herself like the perfect wife. That way, Mercury's there, so it's a little bit immature. It's a little bit can go either way. Perfect wife, perfect husband, maybe sort of a sense, playing both roles in a way. Mars bringing transformation, but really, where's her? Oh, and then we get from the moon, the seventh lord Saturn is also coming into debilitation. Like that. And so I think she's probably a little bit bisexual more than just gay. She's a beautiful woman. I remember when I saw a picture, I was like, oh, good job, Ellen. Because she was a very beautiful woman. Can't remember what she did. She's probably some acting, probably dating Ellen to get a leg up in her career as well. And that's the Rahu as well. They'll often, when Rahu's in the seventh house, they'll often get in relationships that they hope are going to advance their career and or help them in some way. They don't want just, oh, because of a relationship, because, oh, you're nice, I'm in love with you. They usually, Rahu people are looking for some advantage through their negotiating or through their relationship somehow. And so she's really caught up with the nodes, with the gurus, like that Venus and Jupiter and the nodes, that fills her whole center. And so if it's just Rahu and Ketu, and you see these charts, if it's just Rahu and Ketu and as the ascendant and seventh, and no other planets in any of these four middle houses, this usually means they're kind of rotten to the core. And so she has a bit of like inner rotten, inner sort of stagnancy in a sense, but Jupiter and Venus really helping to pull her out. And so she probably gets involved somehow in a lot of wellness schemes, health and wellness schemes and things like that. But she's too secretive about her health problems, and she probably has some really major chronic health issues because of this Saturn. This is that Saturn. They say Saturn in eighth house gives a long life, but this is a good example of the Saturn that's going to give a long death. So she'll get sick, she'll get some chronic illness, and she'll suffer with that a long time before she dies. Sorry, Anne. And so her suffering is going to start very soon. She's got a Saturn period coming in 2026. And so she's probably got an illness just sort of waiting for her around the corner in a way. She's in Jupiter, Mars. So that's that expansion of power, expansion of, they can act like Uttara Phalgunis. They want to at least be seen to be like very noble, very upright in their actions. So they hate to be seen to be the wrong. That's that Saturn too. She really like fights, divorces, imbalance, breakups. She really wants to keep that secret with the Saturn and really keep all of that hidden. That also owns the fifth. So her sense of love, her romances, her dating life, she really wants to keep a lid on all of that. And so, well, chances are she won't be able to, and that stuff will come out, and she'll feel a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment when these things come out.
I think that's already starting to kind of happen with Ellen in a way where like there's some bad news that's starting to surface about Ellen, and I don't know, I think you both heard the statement like you're only as good as your partner in a way. So like if Anne Heche is bringing all of this kind of corruption and taint to Ellen's life, well, it's something that might kind of come up over the next couple of years.
Well, look at Ellen here. She's in a Rahu Ketu period now. And so this is like a major crossroads of her life she's coming to. Rahu is kind of trying to bring her into the future, and Ketu now is probably cutting her from so many things in her past. And I would imagine Ellen doesn't experience Ketu in a nice way. She's probably got a lot of attachments. That's that Jupiter Rahu will make a lot of attachments in the ninth and then aspecting the first. And so disattaching from things probably doesn't go well from Ketu. And that's from people. That's in her third house. So disattaching from her groups, aspecting the seventh, again, breakups and breakup of partner could be there. I don't know. I kind of think Anne and Ellen, I think they already broke up. I don't know if they're still together anymore. They were a thing for a long time, but I'm not sure if they still are. But if Ellen's got anything going on, there's a breakup definitely coming by this Ketu. And maybe she even did get into some kind of relationship and just recently in the Mercury, because Mercury rolls the seventh for Moon, but it's in the eighth house. And so also going very secretive, very hidden that way. Just looking at Ellen's chart, because her chart doesn't actually jump out at me as being the chart of a gay person. It's a little bit, Sun is coming up into the 12th, and so there's some loss of partners and separation, a lot of dreaminess with relationships. Maybe it's just coming in because the men of her life, Mars is with Mercury, and Mercury's usually the Kataka somehow involved in gay people somehow. And gay relationships. And then Rahu also, for his unconventional nature, often comes involved with that. But usually you see all that with the seventh house. So the sun might be with Mercury, or who knows? Maybe Ellen just says she's gay because the whole gay and trans thing was getting so much attention, and maybe she was just doing it all for the attention. Because yeah, her chart doesn't jump out at me as being obviously of a gay person. Maybe her. Oh, I don't have notes on this, so I don't know what about her birth time from.
Yeah, and well, like for me, I'm seeing like the Pisces moon and all of the Libra placements, the Rahu and the Jupiter there. So that's like air placements and Pisces placements. So to me, I kind of see it, I guess.
Yeah, this Rahu, Jupiter, and Libra, this is very much people pleasing sort of behavior. A lot of relationships would come in by Jupiter and Rahu. Boundary breaking relationships would certainly be there, sort of taboo relationships.
Yeah, and her moon is a lack of boundaries. Like any Pisces placement is usually lack of boundaries. I don't know if that's how you interpret it as well, or
yeah, well, there is that. Yeah, Pisces does have that lack of boundaries. She's got Mars aspecting it, bringing a little bit of passion, a little bit of heat. That also affecting the way she smokes. That Mars aspecting Moon and second Pisces. I don't know if she's a drinker, but I think she probably drinks way too much. And then she's got Venus up here highlighting addictive tendencies as well.
right in the 12th, yeah.
Sixth owner, so might she have addictive relationship with food as well. So yeah, a lot of these addictive tendencies in her life. Again, I could see some crossing of boundaries in relationship in her chart, but it's not coming obvious to me that she's gay.
I looked up Anne Heche as well. So she got married to a male and was currently she's dated men and women. So you're right about the bi part.
Yeah.
And she was with Ellen from 97 until 2000.
Okay, she dated men then?
She dated men after, yeah.
Okay, so Ellen's also, yeah, swinging both ways, I guess, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we get this, yeah, that kind of thing. I don't know if we've looked at this chart before. We're just gonna wander here a little bit. What the heck is his name? Oh, I can't remember the guy's name right now. It was a transgender chart I was just gonna have a look at, but let's come back to Uttara Phalguni and see what else we get. We get someone like Gordon Ramsay, the great chef, has moon in Uttara Phalguni. Again, that sense of sovereignty, the leader, a little bit going it alone, like Wyatt Earp, Hugh Dillon, Gordon Ramsay, Steve Irwin, Alex Gray, even J.K. Rowling, all of these, Anne Culte, these are all such independent, sovereign people. They've all quite creative. They've all taken their own path. They don't often have a lot of friends around them. They have students kind of coming to them. Gordon Ramsay, that's what his whole thing is about. A whole bunch of student chefs come and he yells at them for an hour and everybody laughs. Steve Irwin, he was the crocodile hunter guy, right? Again, he's doing this land conservation. He's got that land he had in Australia. His family still has that land. I know some really good friends with it, but they're still like, students come to that all the time to learn about the animals, to do projects there, a lot of science research going on out there. And the Irwin Foundation is just giving to education like crazy, really is. Alex Gray, that's that artist, man. Like you know Alex Gray's art. I'm sure you guys do. If you don't, look up Alex Gray's art. I'm gonna pull up his chart here because he's fully gone his own way. Like nobody's doing anything like Alex Gray. And then what he does now, he goes to he's all into the electronic dance scene, music scene. He's got a big trailer. He goes there and he shows off his art, but he's also sort of the chill out trailer. He's the guy, like he's got the naloxone or whatever these drugs are to treat overdoses and things like that. And so that's some of that wellness stuff coming through Uttara Phalguni. And that's, yeah, it's interesting to see in his fourth house. So that's his home. Mars in the fourth house. I think he lives in the van basically all summer long. He's like doing the festival circuit, just traveling around and really dedicated to sort of giving some direction to the younger people and helping them out and supporting a lot of art and very innovative ideas Alex Gray supports. Yeah, very interesting chart. Okay, this had a C rating. I changed it. Don't ask me why. Spiritual visionary artist. That's actually a really good way to describe Uttara Phalguni. Spiritual visionaries. Really, really they are. And if they can't do it themselves, they'll find they support visionaries. And so I don't know if this is working. Looks like I did a little bit of work on his chart. So maybe this rectification is working. Again, that sort of guru, Migrashirsha. That's his wandering nature. Ardra are really connected with the wild wilderness and the jungle of the music festival, I guess, in a sense. He might do some land conservation work as well, or give some money for that sort of stuff as well. So there's Alex Gray in a nutshell. And he's apparently taken on a whole bunch of duties, right? He's coming to the end of a Saturn period. Saturn's his ninth and his eighth lord. And so very transformative, but a lot of higher knowledge through celebrations, parties. That's that Saturn in the fifth house is going to be working the party somehow. But he's got Venus there. And so he's just loving it. He loves his work. He loves what he's doing. Again, working these great parties. The kind of work he's doing is very chill, very relaxed. And so he's doing very well through his Saturn period. And he's got Mercury period coming next. And so he's going to let go of a lot of that his duties and responsibilities and probably just enjoy the party more, is what he'll start to do much more. And that Mercury's like who he is, and all of that. Very sort of, from one perspective, very immature, the kind of guy who's never ever going to grow up at all. And so he's going to really enjoy his Mercury period. So that sort of stuff. Leon Tolstoy as well. He was out there. He had a lot of the local people sort of following him, and he was a local patron of the arts and a patron just sort of helping the farmer people out to a certain degree. Andrea, yeah, they're all kind of doing wellness type stuff. Romain and Kira. Romain's maybe doing wellness stuff a little bit in line with like a Jean-Claude Van Damme. I think he worked with a lot of kids and stuff as well. Deepak Chopra, Wim Hof also has this. Great healers, sort of people, healing energy. Jack Nicholson, he's always the big boss man. Probably a patron for everything. Mel Gibson also gives a lot of time, money, and energy to the arts and to actually the Passion of Christ. Mel Gibson made that movie, really looked at it in a way like his life's work. There's a lot to in Uttara Phalguni is the Passion of Christ. Anton LaVey, apparently the Passion of Devil Worship as well. There's that left-hand path coming through him. Even Mel Gibson, he's a strong Christian, but he's taken a little bit of unique his own path. Seal as well. I met him, really his own path. Vladimir Pulzlan, he's got a little bit of money in the family, Vladimir, but he's schizophrenic fellow, and does a lot to just support the arts and a patron of all this stuff, and is probably going to give himself till he's broke. Confucius, Rumi, Galileo, Alice Bailey, like these are all huge names. And people that have realized some kind of truth, some kind of higher vision, higher truth, and probably all of them involved in uplifting and promoting education and helping children. Mick Foley, I know, also helps a lot of young people. Gordon Lightfoot, yeah. I haven't. Well, we'll do a couple more. We're going to go very quick. I haven't eaten today yet. I just kind of running off a bit of coffee, but I'm feeling myself getting a little weak and tired early. And so I might just wrap this up and cut it off early at some point. But let's skip to Mars. Mars in Uttara Phalguni is very aggressive and assertive, like really powerful leaders. They can be quite critical. All of that stuff. You can be involved in military and all of that. We see Suleiman the Magnificent, Claude Monet. He was an artist, but he was kind of a bastard for an artist, kind of aggressive and all of that. Glory to the sun, most high, most powerful, the good Lord. Praise, glory, honor, blessings are yours, right? So we get some worship to the sun here. And so we see some commanders, or Barack Obama, commander-in-chief. Ernest Hemingway was in a lot of he was like a military war journalist. He was right in the middle of it all, like that. There's a lot of purity, I think, also comes into Uttara Phalguni and Sun Nakshatras. And that's what Ray Dolby was looking for in sound, that purity, crisp sound. We get B.B. King has more placements here. Tom Waits, Eddie Vedder. These three guys, like Eddie Vedder, I think I don't know, is that he's used to be in Pearl Jam, but I think he writes is that guy that wrote that song Society, wrote the soundtrack for Into the Wild, maybe? Anyways, Society, I hope you're happy without me, or something kind of like that as the song goes. And that's that Independence. That's that. And Tom Waits, I don't know if you guys know Tom Waits. He's one of my favorites, I think. Very independent, nobody told him what to do, really lived on his own terms, like that. Jeff Bridges, the dude, man, like that's Uttara Phalguni. He's the dude, like, dude, just don't tell the dude what to do. I just want a new carpet, dude. So that's the dude. So very, again, independent, sovereign. He doesn't give a fuck for anybody, right? And that's kind of Uttara Phalguni. You can see it really through all of these characters. Mick Foley, Matt Damon also. He's got that whole Boston, I don't give a fuck thing going on.
They do, correct me if I'm wrong, but my dad had this placement of Mars, and I think like they don't care, but they need that validation in a way, right? Like there does need to be some sort of an external awareness of what they're doing, whereas like a Sag Mars would not give a shit at all, you know, like doesn't need attention or anything like that. But I think Uttara Phalguni needs that attention. Is that
That's a good point. Yeah, especially the first Pada ones, these guys, they need that attention. Definitely, yeah. And that's kind of, well, they get the attention by being the guy that doesn't give a fuck, in a sense. So it's kind of funny how that works out. And maybe that associates a little bit with the Virgo nature of 3/4 of this. But then they're getting attention, maybe, what is this? This is Mars. And so Mars in Virgo is very aggressive, very critical of a lot of things. Dr. Dre, Britney Spears, they're a little bit different than some of the others. I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to cut it off here. There's no easy, clear way to stop. And I'm really getting really weak here. So I need to.
You need to Uttara Phalguni it up by.
There might be actually, it's good that this is happening because there's a bit of diabetes in some of these Phalguni placements. And so the blood sugar thing is hitting me. So anyways, I'm going to go on blood sugar myself.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Always so
for
nice every time.
take care? Yeah.
I really hope we'll make sure I can see you in Montreal somehow when I come.
Yeah.
We'll make it
Let's
happen.
try. Let's just keep in touch.
Yeah, you bet. I'm staying, you
Okay.
know Raph, right?
What?
You know Raphael?
Yeah.
I'm going to be staying with Raphael.
With the guy Raphael or the girl Raphael?
The guy Raphael, sorry.
Photographer.
But the Raphael with the long hair, he was selling
Oh.
drugs. He was the drug dealer guy on Pools Land. And
Was
now,
it a pretty one?
yeah, he had that
Fun.
scruffy little beard. He was a little bit chubby man.
Oh, I think it's a different Raphael, but maybe I remember. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're thinking of the crazy guy. No, he was weird. Raphael's pretty chill.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, yeah. Enjoy your meal and let's keep in touch. And I'd love to make it happen.
Enjoy enjoy your travels, guys.
Thank you. You too.
Mahadev, Mahadev, Mahadev.
Bye.